Silence in outer space is the most terrible lie one can ever hear. Because a second before the pirate cruiser Bloodfang opened fire on the small human cargo ship, the cruiser's crew was absolutely certain this would be their easiest prey in 10 years. None of them knew that in 40 minutes, only one of the 12 pirates would remain alive, and that one would beg for mercy from a creature that, just an hour ago, had seemed to them simply a man with tired eyes. Remember this moment, because what happened next echoed across the galaxy like a warning burned in blood on metal. Never touch a human ship unless you know who's on it. Now, let me tell you how it all began. This was the outskirts of the Cassiopeia 9 sector, a godforsaken place where trade routes intersected with territory even the bravest captains avoided. It was here, among the wreckage of asteroids and dead stations, that the pirates of Clan Vrax roamed, a reptilian race with cold blood and even colder hearts. They didn't fight. They didn't conquer. They simply killed and plundered, slowly, methodically, savoring every cry of their prey as if it were a delicacy. Captain Vrax, a being named Skarnot, had commanded the Bloodfang for 15 years. During those years, he had captured over 200 ships. He knew how to read fear. He had seen in the eyes of dozens of races, in the trembling tentacles of the Zolorians, in the pallid scales of the reptilian traders, in the panic of the soft-bodied humanoids who surrendered at the mere sight of his fleet. But he'd never met humans in person before. He'd only heard rumors. A weak race, other pirates said. Fragile bodies, short lifespans, primitive weaponry by the standards of most civilizations. Humans had only just entered outer space, a young race, naive, emotional, easily panicked. That's why, when the Bloodfang scanners detected a lone human freighter called the Nemesis drifting unescorted in that danger sector, Skarnot only laughed, revealing 2 rows of sharp teeth. They're either very stupid or very desperate, he hissed his first mate, a creature named Cress. Either way, we'll have a feast tonight. Cress nodded, licking his lips with his long, forked tongue. Intelligence says the crew is only 8. The cargo is unknown, but the energy signature suggests valuable technology, possibly a military contract. 8 men, Skarnot repeated, savoring the sound of the words. Open a communication channel. Let them hear my voice before they die. I like it when they pray. Aboard the Nemesis, the atmosphere was completely different. The ship's captain, a woman named Elena Kowalski, sat in the pilot's seat, studying the approaching pirate cruiser on a holographic display. She was 42 years old. Her hair, pulled back into a tight ponytail, was beginning to gray at the temples. Not from age, but from a life that had never been easy. Her face was calm, almost bored, a stark contrast to the scene around her. "Captain, they're contacting us," said a young navigator named Daniel, barely concealing the tremor in his voice. He was only 19. This was his 3rd flight. "Accept the challenge," Elena said, without taking her eyes off the screen. The hologram showed Skarnot's face, scaly, scarred, with yellow vertical pupils that glowed with predatory pleasure. "Human ship," Skarnot hissed, "you are within my zone of control. Shut down your engines, open your cargo bays, and prepare to be searched. Resistance will result in immediate execution of the entire crew. Cooperation might buy you a few extra hours of life." Silence fell over the wheelhouse. Young Daniel turned pale. The ship's engineer, a large man named Marcus, clenched his fist so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Only Elena remained absolutely still, like a stone statue in the storm. She leaned forward toward the camera, her voice even, almost soft. "Are you sure you want this?" Skarnot froze for a split second. No one but Elena noticed. No cargo in his career had ever responded like that. Not a plea, not panic, just a calm, almost pitiful question. He decided it was a bluff. "I'm as sure as I am that in an hour your body will be floating in a vacuum, little man," he growled and cut off the connection. Elena leaned back in her chair and looked at her crew. Each of them looked at her, not with fear, but with anticipation, because they knew something the pirates didn't. "Well then," she said quietly, "here begins. To understand what happened next, we need to go back 15 years to the day when humanity first learned that it was not alone in the universe, and that not everyone out there is friendly. First contact was bloody. A race called the Koryaks, a powerful empire with a fleet of thousands of ships, attacked a frontier human colony without warning, without negotiation, simply because they could. Over 300,000 people died in 2 days. Earth, which until then had naively believed in peaceful coexistence with the stars, learned for the first time the true value of space. But people didn't break. They never broke. 6 months after the massacre, Earth's Unified Command created a program known only to a few, a program codenamed Nemesis. Not the name of a ship, the name of a philosophy. The program trained specialized crews, not soldiers in traditional sense, but people with a unique set of skills. Engineers capable of turning an ordinary truck into a deadly trap, tacticians who could plan a battle 10 steps ahead, and fighters who had been to the hell of war. Elena Kowalski, on the other side, was one of the first to undergo this program. Ordinary she lost her husband and 8-year-old daughter, seemingly unarmed, during the Koryak attack prey on the new Michigan exactly colony. How it was intended. She watched as their escape because humanity has realized one simple truth: 500 meters space away, predators, powerless to do anything. Attacked weak. From that day on, only one fire burned in her heart. Be deadly, not revenge in traditional sense, but something deeper and more dangerous. A determination to ensure that no predator in the universe would ever again view humans as easy prey. Over 15 years, her crew, which changed, lost members, and gained new ones, destroyed more than 40 pirate and slave ships. Each time, using the same method: feign weakness, lure them in, and destroy them from within. The Nemesis wasn't a cargo ship. It was a decoy disguised as one. And now Skarnot was steering his cruiser straight into its mouth. The pirate shuttle docked with the Nemesis's cargo bay 20 minutes later. 12 armed vraks, including Skarnot himself and his first mate, Cress, stormed inside, weapons pointed in all directions, ready to face panic and chaos. Instead, they were met with emptiness. The corridors were dimly lit, quiet, almost lifeless. No screams, no attempts at resistance, only the echo of their own footsteps, bouncing off the metal walls. "Something's wrong," Cress whispered, gripping his weapon tighter. "They're just scared," Skarnot snorted, though for the first time in a long time there was a hint of doubt in his voice. "Hiding like rats. Find them. Bring them to me alive. I want to see their faces as I kill them one by one." The pirates split into 3 groups, dispersing to different sections of the ship. What they thought was a routine cleanup was in fact the last voyage of their lives. The first group of 3 pirates headed for the engine room. They were walking down a narrow corridor, lit only by emergency lights, when the youngest of them, a scout named Tarn, noticed something strange. A thin, almost invisible wire stretched at ankle level. "Stop!" he shouted, but it was too late. The trap was triggered instantly. Not an explosion, not a fire, something more insidious. A section of the floor beneath them simply vanished, revealing a maintenance airlock, leading directly into outer space through a sealed emergency airlock. In a split second, the system slammed the airlock shut behind them, trapping all 3 in a 3-by-3-meter vacuum chamber. Tarn screamed, slamming his fist on the glass of the transfer hatch, revealing the ship's corridor. On the other side, calmly watching through a small viewing window, stood Engineer Marcus, the same large man from control room. He wasn't smiling. He simply watched, like a man doing a difficult but necessary job. "Sorry, guys," he said quietly, knowing they couldn't hear him through the sealed glass. "But you picked the wrong ship." He pressed the panel. The vestibule opened into space. 3 screams were cut off in the complete, absolute silence of the vacuum. Skarnot, in another part of the ship, felt a slight vibration through the deck, a barely perceptible change in pressure. He stopped. "What was that?" "I don't know, Captain," Cress replied, also tensing up. They tried to contact the first group by radio. Silence. Tarn answer. Tarn. Nothing but static. For the first time in his 15-year career, Skarnot felt something cold and unfamiliar creep up his spine. He was used to being the hunter. He wasn't used to being the hunted. "Move carefully," he growled at the remaining 9 pirates. "Something's wrong here." The second group of 4 pirates headed for the crew's quarters, expecting to find people hiding there. They found empty cabins, tidy, almost sterile, devoid of personal belongings, as if no one had ever truly lived there. This in itself was strange. But the pirates, blinded by greed and malice, didn't stop to consider this detail. At the end of the corridor, they came across a freight elevator. The doors opened automatically, as if inviting them in. "It's a trap," whispered one of the pirates, more cautious than the others. "Or it's the way to their hidden treasures," another chuckled, entering. The elevator began to move downwards into the darkness. It stopped after 10 seconds. The doors opened onto a completely dark room. The pirates turned on the lights on their weapons, illuminating the space ahead, and saw that they were in a cargo hold surrounded by tall metal containers. "There's no one here," one of them muttered disappointedly. It was at that moment that the light in the hold turned on completely, blinding them for a moment. When their vision was restored, they saw her. A woman stood on a raised platform 30 meters away. Young, about 25, with short brown hair and a scar across her left eyebrow. She held not a weapon, but something resembling a small control panel. "My name is Sarah," she said calmly, her voice echoing throughout the hold. "I want you to know my name before this is over, because what happens next will not be an accident. It will be a choice you made when you decided to attack this ship." The pirates laughed, pointing their guns at her. "You're alone. Stupid girl," their leader growled. "Against 4. "I'm not alone," Sarah replied, and there was no fear in her voice. "I'm never alone on this ship." She pressed a button on the remote control. The containers around the pirates opened simultaneously with a metallic screech, and thick white gas poured out. The pirates coughed and tried to retreat, but the gas instantly affected their respiratory system, which was different from humans, a chemical compound developed specifically for the reptilian physiology of the Vrax, studied by humans after capturing previous pirate ships of the same race. Within 12 seconds, all 4 were lying motionless on the floor. Sarah stepped down from the dais, putting on her gas mask, and looked at the fallen bodies with the same calm, almost mournful expression that Marcus had on his face a moment ago in another part of the ship. "It's a pity you didn't choose another ship," she said quietly. Scarnot and the 5 pirates remaining with him, including Cress, now moved through the corridors with growing panic, which the captain tried to hide under a mass of rage. "Contact the second group," he growled. "Silence." From the third, silence again. "Call the cruiser and tell them prepare for immediate evacuation," Scarnot ordered, and for the first time, there was undisguised fear in his voice. Cress attempted to contact the ship, but the communication channel was filled with interference. "The signal is blocked, Captain. Someone is jamming our transmitters." At that moment, a lone figure appeared at the far end of the corridor. It was Elena. She walked slowly, without rushing, her footsteps echoing loudly in the silent corridor. She held no weapon. She simply walked, and this simple action terrified the 6 heavily armed pirates more than any shout or threat. "Shoot her!" Scarnot yelled. 5 pirates opened fire simultaneously, and at that moment, the corridor around Elena seemed to come alive. Hidden protective panels in the walls opened, revealing an automated turret system that instantly intercepted most of the incoming fire, deflecting the energy bolts. Elena ducked around the corner a split second before the turrets returned fire, cutting down 2 pirates on the spot. The remaining 4, including Scarnot and Cress, ran for cover, firing at random. "What is this ship?" Cress screamed, panic finally taking over his voice. Scarnot didn't answer. He crawled along the wall, breathing heavily, his predatory mind frantically trying to find a way out of a situation that was rapidly turning into a nightmare. It was at that moment that Elena's voice was heard, calm, coming from somewhere above through the ship's loudspeakers. "Let me tell you who we are," she said, and there was no malice in her voice, only a cold determination honed by years of pain. 15 years ago, my husband and my daughter died when their escape pod was shot at for sport. I watched it happen, and I could do nothing. From that day on, I swore that no predator in the universe would ever feel safe hunting humans again. Scarnot froze, listening, his breathing quickening. "We're not a cargo ship," Elena continued. "We never were. We're a trap, bait for the likes of you. And every one of you who's boarded this ship over the last 15 years, thinking you'd found easy prey, has found the hunter become the hunted." "Lies!" Scarnot yelled, firing randomly at the speaker. "Humans are weak. People are just meat. Then explain to me. Elena's voice became quieter, sharper. Where you're 12 people now? The silence that followed that question was the loudest thing Scarnot had ever heard in his life. It was at this moment that Daniel, the 19-year-old navigator who had been sitting in the control room until then, activated the final phase of the plan, the one they called Spring the Trap. The main pirate cruiser, the Bloodfong, waiting in orbit, suddenly received a false distress signal disguised as Scarnot's voice, ordering some of the cruiser's crew to move closer for additional support during the capture. As the cruiser approached, the Nemesis's hidden weapon batteries, the very technology for which the project had been created, revealed themselves from beneath the ship's false hull. What appeared to be ordinary cargo panels turned out to be a weapon system capable of penetrating the cruiser's armor at 3 key points simultaneously. The cruiser shuddered from the explosions, losing control, its engines blazing blue in a vacuum of space. Inside the corridor, Scarnot heard a distant rumble through the hull of the ship and felt his heart, if one could call that organ a heart, clench in terror. "What have you done?" he shouted. "The same thing you've done with hundreds of other ships throughout your career," Elena replied, only this time from the other side of the table. The final battle took place in the cargo hold, where Scarnot and Cress, the last 2 survivors of the 12 pirates, were herded in. The entire Nemesis crew, all 7 of them, Elena, Marcus, Sarah, Daniel, and 3 other crew members we haven't yet named but who fought with the same cold determination, surrounded them on 3 sides. Cress, realizing the hopelessness of the situation, threw the weapon on the floor and raised his hands. "Mercy," he hissed. "We surrender. The international laws of war require." "The international laws of war," Elena repeated quietly, and for the first time in the entire battle, real, burning rage sounded in her voice. "Did not protect my daughter when she was 8 years old, and her capsule was shot at for fun of creatures like you." Cress fell silent, truly realizing for the first time that he was facing something far more dangerous than just angry victims. Scarnot, still clutching the weapon with trembling, clawed hands, looked at Elena with hatred mixed with involuntary, disgusting respect. "Who are you?" he croaked. "What race creates traps, feigning weakness for years on end, just to get revenge?" Elena took a step forward. "We are human," she said simply. "We lose everything we love, again and again. Wars, disasters, betrayals. The history of our species is filled with pain. But here's what you here's what this entire galaxy doesn't understand about us. Every time you take something from a person, their family, their home, their hope, you don't create weakness. You create something far more dangerous." She looked straight into Scarnot's eyes. "You create a goal." At that moment, Scarnot attempted one last act, a desperate, reckless lunge, raising his weapon in an attempt to take at least one life. But Marcus, standing unnoticed behind him, reacted first, disarming the pirate with a single practice move, honed by years of training in actual combat. Scarnot fell to his knees, utterly broken, utterly defeated. Silence fell over the cargo hold. Elena looked at the 2 surviving pirates, Scarnot and Cress, the only ones of the 12 who remained alive. "You will live," she said finally, and there was something more calculating than mercy in the words. "Because the dead cannot tell stories. And I want you to return, if there's a way to get you to your kind, and tell every pirate, every slaver, every predator who heard the word human and thought easy prey, what happened here today." She leaned closer to Scarnot. "Tell them we're not weak. We're just patient. And tell them that the next time they see a lone, seemingly unarmed human ship drifting in a dangerous sector, they should think twice, because it could be the last mistake they ever make." 3 weeks after the event, the story of the Nemesis began to spread across the dark corners of the galaxy. First as rumor, then as legend, and then as verified, documented fact that every pirate captain, every slaver, every predatory creature in known space had memorized. Don't mess with people. Not because humans were the most powerful race. Not because their technology surpassed that of the ancient empires. But because humans carried through the centuries something that no army or navy could defeat. The ability to transform pain into purpose, grief into determination, and weakness into the deadliest trap in the known universe. Aboard the Nemesis, a month after the battle, Elena Kowalski stood at the porthole, gazing at the endless stars stretching before her. Behind her, in the control room, Daniel laughed, joking with Marcus about something insignificant. The same laughter that would have been impossible if the plan had failed that day. Sarah came over and stood next to the captain, also looking at the stars. "We'll never stop, will we?" she asked quietly. Elena was silent for a long time before answering. "As long as there are those in the universe who think they can prey on the weak with impunity," she said finally, "we will be here, waiting, ready." She placed her hand on the cold glass of the porthole, and for a moment, just a moment, her hard, unwavering face softened, revealing the deep, never-healing wound that had been hidden beneath the mask of strength all these years. "It's the only way I know how to remember them," she whispered, thinking of her husband and daughter, whose names were engraved on a small metal plaque in her cabin, which she had carried with her every day of her life since that terrible day. "By making sure that no other family has to go through what mine did." The ship turned slowly. Its engines came to life, and the Nemesis, that deceptively fragile, silent, seemingly unarmed cargo ship, disappeared once more into the vast darkness of space, heading toward the next danger, the next trap, the next predator that would make the fatal mistake of mistaking patience for weakness. Because somewhere out there among the stars, there will always be another pirate, another slave trader, another creature who hasn't learned his lesson. And Nemesis will be waiting for them with open arms, ready to teach that lesson again.